Alright, 6.4 is a bit difficult. There's some inconsistency with the way the information is presented in this question relative to what you find in the back of the text. So if you're having some difficulty obtaining the textbook answer, there's a reason for that. So this question reads, an analyst has modeled the stock of a company using the Fama-French three-factor model. The market return is 10%. The return on the small minus big or small minus large portfolio is 3.2%, and the return on the high minus low portfolio is 4.8. If the just standard coefficient alpha slope is 0, the beta slope coefficient for the market return is 1.2. The beta slope coefficient for small minus big or small minus large is negative 0.4, and the beta slope coefficient for small minus big is 1.3. What is the stock's predicted return? So depending upon how you read the text, there's a couple ways to read into this. If you were reading the text and the footnotes, you would have noticed some information about when regressing, the risk-free rate can be excluded from regression, and this referred to a footnote number 20. Footnote 20, if you guys didn't notice it, is located on page 262 in your text. And it says, theory suggests that the risk-free rate for each day should be subtracted from the stock return. So this is when you're doing daily estimations to estimate beta values that, because the rate is close to 0, that it can be dropped, similar to the market model. Whereas if you look later in the text for the actual overview of the three-factor model on page 277, you see that the risk-free return is subtracted from the left-hand side of the equation, and you also see that the risk-free return is subtracted from the market return. And this is again on page 277, equation 20. Then you see some footnotes referring to the risk factors, but if you flip over to page 278, you'll notice that there's mention of short-term movements, and so 32 footnote doesn't apply so much, but when you get to 33, I'll say notice that the risk-free rate is not used in the regression for the same reason as not using the market model estimates of beta, and so that's footnote 20. So it says also the annual risk-free rate is 6% in this example, so that information is given in there. So you'll notice that, again, this question doesn't give you any information on the risk-free rate. So if you're confused, that's kind of why, and if you'd read some of those footnotes, it can be a bit confusing. So let's just try to solve the question as it's stated, and then try to figure out potentially how did the textbook get to the answer that's in the back of the text. So if we just read this question as stated, we would say, well, we know alpha I is 0, so we'll just drop that intercept value. And then we'll say we move the risk-free rate over to the right-hand side, plus, we can even exclude that for now, so we'll just say beta I, or the slope coefficient for the market return, times the return in the market plus the second slope coefficient times small minus big or small minus large value plus the third beta coefficient for high minus low times that return. And so what do we get? You see we get a value of 16.96, and this greatly differs from what you find in the back of the text. If you look in the text, you'll see a solution given of 10.96. So we're off by that amount. Now the way that we can figure this out is we can include a risk-free rate, and notice that we added here market risk premium, so it subtracts that amount. Now one way we could view this is, well, this amount right here remains stable, so we just have to subtract and not worry about the risk-free rate on the left-hand side. So what value of a risk-free would make this to where it's equal to 10.96? Well, we could say 5%, and we get 10.96. But the problem with that is we're subtracting the risk-free on this market risk premium coefficient, and we're not accounting for it on this side, which is essentially saying it has to be over here. So if we come back here and we simply add that term in, now we see that we've only gone down by a certain amount. So we know, though, as we keep increasing the risk-free, what's going to happen? Our amount will gradually approach 10.96. So we can increase this to, say, 10. See, oh, we're only at 14, so maybe we double it. Oh, getting closer. How about we triple? Okay, we're right there. So what we see is we'd actually have to have a risk-free rate of 30% to get the textbook's solution based on this answer. So depending upon how you read into this, it would definitely impact how you solve. So if you just used this equation right here and excluded subtracting out the risk-free on this side, you could just say, well, there's a risk-free of 5% versus 30%. I think what the textbook intended was to have a market risk premium right here of 5%, but not include the risk-free rate here. And so that's how you get to the solution. So if you have problems, it's for obvious reason. There's an error in the textbook. There's multiple ways to read into it. Or you could just say, as the question is stated, the answer should really be 16.96. So hopefully that helps. And if that is still confusing, shoot me an email or ask me during class.